Yeah, so now let me just officially welcome everyone. So it's episode 6 of VNIT Startup Talks, and so as we were talking earlier, we have a batchmate interviewing a batchmate. So that's the pride I'm taking in having Shantanu here. So Shantanu, it's a privilege to have you, and we're gonna talk about your journey and a lot of other things. I'm sure even the audience has a whole lot of questions. So you have this super following on LinkedIn and other social media, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions coming in from the audience as well. So the way we would want to structure this is, we would want to have a dialogue of sorts for, let's say, first half an hour or so, and then we would open it up for questions from everyone. So
Yeah,
initially we would want to hear your story. So how did this startup Kida begin, and all those kind of things. So I would want to start with this question. So at what point in your entire journey you thought, okay, I want to start up? Okay, because that's where a lot of us are there. Some are hesitant, some are not, some give it a try. So where exactly did it all begin?
understood. Cool. So I'll give a brief introduction about myself. First of all, thanks, Gayatri. It's a privilege to be here as well and talk to entrepreneurs, many of whom are quite tenured and senior. So big scope for me and all of us to learn. I saw someone from the '84 batch, and I was like, wow, this is an interesting individual to definitely share notes with. So my name is Shantanu Deshpande. I am a 2009 alumnus, 2009 graduate of VNIT Nagpur, batch of computer science. I'm originally from the city of Pune. So my schooling was in Pune, then 4 years in Nagpur. I went directly to IIM Lucknow for my business degree because I was a hopeless programmer, computer scientist, engineer, whatever. I didn't not that I didn't have. I probably had some of the aptitude needed, but I indexed completely minimally on interest, and wanted to do other things. I was a sports secretary, played for the football team, and did a lot of cool things at Nagpur outside of the classroom. IIM Lucknow was kind of similar, part of the fest coordinating team, which was a big deal on campus. Deeply involved in sales and marketing work. As you know, interned with Nokia. 2 years there were fantastic, and then I went to McKinsey, which was a consulting firm. And to be very honest, and I think many of you might relate, a lot of us come to NIT Nagpur after having failed our IIT exams, and are amongst the unlucky second tier, right? Similar story at Lucknow, to be honest. I tried for Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Calcutta, I didn't get the calls, and Lucknow was kind of, it's a great institute, just the way VNIT is, but it's not. Everyone there has aimed for something bigger and has landed up there. So the pro of that is, I mean, the con of that, of course, is quite obvious, that you feel that you have not reached where you are aimed for. But the pro of that is you have the kind of fire to kind of want to do more. I've noticed this with people from Nagpur and from IIM Lucknow. You have that additional desire to prove you're better. There's a competitiveness that takes the place of entitlement, and I think that's an amazing common theme between the two institutes. Um, Different story at McKinsey, right? McKinsey was the best firm to come across campuses. If you want to be a consultant, there's no better firm. So suddenly at McKinsey, I had the imposter syndrome. I felt I didn't belong. I felt I didn't deserve to be there. 6 years of being told that you have kind of not gotten to the aim. You kind of condition yourself to a different way. But the good part about McKinsey was I did really well. I was wired to be a consultant, top level, boardroom level discussions. I was young, quick problem solving cycles, deeply analytical work, good combination of relationships and just so. But 4 or 5 years in, and I was doing really well, climbing up the ladder rather quickly. And to answer your question, I think, and I'll do it very honestly, this is a safe space. I didn't feel the end outcome at a firm like McKinsey from a wealth standpoint was worthwhile. Okay. I had seen like very senior partners, people who had spent 35, 37 years at the firm, literally 24 to 60, retire. And they had more money than they could imagine, but the amount of effort and the amount of time that goes into building a 36-year career at McKinsey was ridiculous. You have to travel multiple geographies of many clients, put in 16-hour days for 5 days a week, travel 3 countries a week for many, many years as partner and senior partner. I think you commit yourself deeply. Like people who make senior partner the firm, if you cut their veins, they bleed blue. Okay. And honestly, I didn't feel it was worth it. Like at the end of it, if you're getting away, and I'll put the numbers down, right? A McKinsey senior partner, even if they do all the good things in life, they walk away with between 150 to 200 crores today. Not worth it. Like 35 years to do all of that, and then I mean, you do. So I would say people have to index on one of three axes. Most people index on a safe combination, but the three axes are wealth, power, and fame. Okay. Uh, Fame is Bollywood and theater and all of that. So people who like that do that. Power is bureaucrats, politicians, IAS, all of that. Wealth is entrepreneurs, people. So I mean, your career choice has to index very highly on one of these three or very well on all of them, right? And for me, it was like it didn't index on power at all. It didn't index on fame at all. It indexed weakly on wealth. So I didn't feel like it was worthwhile. And many people feel, oh, it's a blue dream company, blah blah blah. Especially a Maharashtrian mindset, oh, service business, so much salary, blah blah blah. So that was the gig. And then coming to Bombay Shaving Company, look, 5 years in, India was going through a startup revolution. People were investing in infrastructure around e-commerce and logistics. I was keenly observing some of this as a consultant. I was serving clients who were going through digital revolutions of their own. I did a due diligence on a target in the US, which was acquired for $1 billion plus by one of the largest global consumer companies. So when you do a due diligence, you really understand the weeds. The way you talk to the founder, you understand. I'm like, boss, this is amazing. It's India is an IPO rich country for consumer products. I had a natural instinct for it. I had a passion for it. I had an insight that men need to look good. After thousands of years of women being forced to look good and men being okay being shabby, how many of us have gone to weddings where the guy looked totally ridiculous and was marrying someone way out of his league, right? Last 20 years, people are live casting on Shadi.com. Everyone wants to be right swipe. No one knows how. So building a brand for men to look good was very much needed. Many people have figured this out over the last 4 5 years, but that was the insight. We built a brand, and that's how we're going. It's going pretty well. But the trigger, to be very honest, to answer your question, wasn't some deep passion for razors or whatever. I don't think that was the case at all. I knew that if I were to put in the kind of time, and look, people of our age, we are about 32, 33, our age, we don't have one 40-year career. We have 5 8-year careers, each of which can have 500 crore outcomes, right? So we should take those calls early on in life rather than later on. If salaries are addictive, they're horrible addictions. So get out of it quickly. Then they make you very satisfied with very low amounts of monetary outcomes. So yeah, not worth it.
Correct. So, but again, I'm just going to probe on this one thing. So, how did you get this idea of getting into this shaving? So, you mentioned that there was no passion for razors and all. So, where did this idea strike exactly? Because it's I think it's much easier to start a services company. All you have to do is sit on a computer and build codes and other things. So, it's still easier because there's not a lot of infra that's required. But when you're starting something which is in the FMCG thing, so it's a much bigger bet, I think. So where exactly did that? Because you would need a strong conviction, even if you don't have, let's say, that amount of passion, but that conviction would be required that, okay, this is something which would be worthwhile. So how did that come?
Two, three kind of triggers, right? One was I was doing the work at McKinsey where I was serving promoters. I was serving people who had built out billion-dollar consumer brands in India in the 80s and 90s, right? So I saw firsthand what the journey could look like and what scale you can get if you can understand the product brand consumer fit, right? Look at Indian consumer brands. Look at Nirma. Look at Haldiram. I was just talking to the Bikaji guys. I know the Fog team like very, very closely. So you know that if you have the right product at the right price for the right consumer and the insight is good, there is real value to be built. Our next door neighbor in Pune built out Indigo Paints, which IPO'd a couple of weeks back, like rock solid IPO, right? So he's like a family friend. So I saw him as a child. I would see him kind of go to his paint shop, and then Sequoia invested, and they acquired some company in Coimbatore, and today it's like clocking 700 crores plus of business, right? So there are these seeds of hey, this is possible if you know what you're doing. It's not impossible. Couple of really cool founders that I met. I met the founder of this company called Kesh King. Amazing. Like consumer brands in India have been built by people who are very close to the earth. Okay, they have not been built by McKinsey consultants or engineers or IIM grads or whatever. They've been built by people of the soil, right? And this guy was like, he find the 35-year-old male, find out the most biggest insecurities these people have, and then build out a semi-pharma, OTC pharma product for them with the name of the product being in Hindi. That was the insight. And he told me all this in very inarticulate Hindi, but very clear. Okay. So Kesh King, number one insecurity is balding. Men don't go anywhere. So pharma dukano mein Kesh King ka tail. So Haridwar, the guy has a like it's literally a cow shed which is made into this oil factory kind of thing. Can't even call it a factory. So brilliant marketing. Got Salman Khan movies. One screen theater in UP Bihar before the Salman Khan movie release. He'll go and put Raju Srivastava ads. Kesh King became a 300 crore brand, sold it for 1,000 crores to Emami. Fantastic cash outcome, bootstrapped, totally self-funded. Then he said, okay, fine, I've sold this. Now what's the next insecurity 35-year-old man has? He said it's piles and hemorrhoids. Okay. So I need to find something for constipation. So built a brand called Pet Safa. It's now 200 crores in revenue. Again, it's this yellow bottle of violent laxatives, which just kind of make the person feel 2 kilo lighter the next morning. It's just that, okay? But the logo is a guy sitting on a commode. He's as crash as that. 200 crores, the guy 100% will sell it for 1,000 crores to Cipla or Dr. Reddy's or one of these companies will buy. So you figure out that, guys, once you get the trick, it's very easy to create. Not very easy, but like the playbook is kind of there. So that was that. And, one of my very close friends was at HUL. He was the brand manager of Axe. They were getting rogered by Fog in 2014, 2015. That happened. Then I had a couple of mentors from McKinsey who went to join Flipkart and were telling me about this amazing consumer story that's happening. People are buying stuff online. I realized that, okay, you know what? FMCG ke liye, the big barriers to entry were two: marketing and distribution. Marketing, because you would have to buy a lot of media to put a basic message out there. So awareness was hard. Distribution, because India is just complex to get into stores. Like it's just multiple layers of complexity. And the problems are bulge bracket problems, right? You can't solve them in one go. You have to solve them layer by layer. But both these problems are getting solved because of Amazon and Flipkart and the billions of dollars that have come in because people just are able to deliver the pin codes. But like, cool. Barriers to entry are going down. I love doing this. This is how people are doing it outside. So put those three together. And I know that men want a brand to look good. Like, cool, this is a great idea. So let's build it. I mean, it's hard, of course. You can't build razors that easily. You have to invest in a lot of R&D and, you have to have a sense for the product and so on. But easier to solve problems. Once you know what you need to do, then it's easier to solve.
Right. So did you guys start the R&D upfront, or it was like all, after getting all the funding and then you started it, or was that kind of going in stealth mode while you were still working?
No. So, very good question. So I basically, if I were to just rewind, right, I raised capital from 20 of my bosses. The good part about McKinsey is in 5 years, I had 20, 25 bosses. So you change projects every 4 or 5 months, right? And each of whom I had some kind of good relationship with, and I told them I'm leaving. And a good way to stay in touch is to write me a check, and I'll give you equity in this amazing idea that I have, which is very different from what the company is today, by the way. So they're very kind of the firm and the firm partnership. So 24, 25 of them, they got their friends involved, and we put in 4.5 crores. I put in 50, 60 lakhs of my own, and that's about pretty much what I had saved in 3-4 years at McKinsey. And we have put a 5 crore round together, and we use that to kind of get industrial designers recruited. The good part about India, by the way, Gayatri, is if you were to just divide FMCG, personal care, FMCG, and shaving into, like, you divide it into one is you have razors, right, which is from an industrial design standpoint, and mechanical engineers on this group will know this, is kind of complex, right? You'll need some amount of patents, and you'll need your own design. And razors especially is hard to make. Like, you're putting sharp blades on someone's face. You can't go wrong. The precision is very high. But the rest of it, right, gels and foams and creams and soaps and all that, Diamond doesn't manufacture us in India, right? So, and easier to do. So we quickly built out dermatologists, R&D facilities, chemical engineers, all of that for that part. And for razors and trimmers, we put in an industrial design team, some of it outsourced, some of it insourced. And idea is to have very quick problem-solving cycles. Whether it's marketing, sales, logistics, supply chain, the core, I think, of any agile young company is if your problem-solving cycles are quick, sharp, quick, and very outcome-oriented. I think any startup, whatever space you're in, whether it's services, whatever, if your problem-solving cycles are quick, I think that's the most important. We did that reasonably well. Today, we can go from consumer insight to product launch in 2.5 months. That number 5 years back was roughly 6 months. We launched the company in Jan-Feb. We launched our product by July. We're ready to go products. And it's not like we failed.
Yeah. Nice. Wow. These are like some amazing insights.
Guys, I'm sorry. I know Gayatri has kind of, at my request, put everyone on mute. But if you have a question, please feel free to jump in. I'm very happy to answer questions randomly. I'm happy to have a conversation. You want to put it in the chat if you don't want to disturb the flow, that's also fine. Gayatri was asking we should prepare for this and all. Given that she and I are close friends from college, I just did not feel the need. I just felt great conversations lead to the most best outcomes in this kind of setting. So we are all from the same college, many of us older and so on. So if you want to jump in, have a question, add on, disagree, feel free to just unmute and then go for it. I'm completely okay. Silence is unnerving.
No, so anyway, I'll just unmute everyone in just 10 minutes or so. So I am into the teaching profession, so I know when to keep the students on mute and when
I
not
could see
to.
that.
So
I
I'm
could
going
see
to
the
apply.
instinct.
Okay, anyway, so but yeah, coming back to this discussion, so I have like multiple follow-up questions on these. So you were mentioning about you had this next door neighbor who is had this IPO and all, but closer home you had an entrepreneur at home as well. So how
Yeah.
much of an influence was your father? And of course, your fields are much different, but I'm sure that would have helped in the mindset, the thought process, and also how much would you rate that as an important thing? Because you also mentioned about that Maharashtrian thing. So I faced that problem. So we face this problem that people say, why did you leave that job? It was such a nice paying job. But yeah, so how much was that an influence? So
Yeah. So by the way, these individuals who ask these questions, I started ignoring them when they started asking, why did you go to NIT Nagpur when you had admission in COEP? I'm like, guys, they asked my brother why he went to IIT Bombay when they could get admission in COEP. So I was like, okay, there is a clear irrationality in these bizarre questions. But to be honest, yeah. So my dad, just for people who don't know, guys, you know my family well, but people who don't know, my father is a BITS Pilani IIT Bombay grad, was in TCS for the longest time from 78 to 93, 94. We were in the US where I did my early part of school. Then came back in '96 to India when he got a job as the CEO of Tech Mahindra, which at that time was a much smaller business compared to what it is today. But it was in Pune. Both my grandmoms were in India, so my parents did want to move back. It was a great opportunity. Did that for 7, 8 years, built out Tech Mahindra to what it was. Almost took it to IPO had Ketan Parekh not kind of come in. But 2004 or 5, when he was kind of 50, is when he decided he sat us all down at a dinner table and said, guys, look, all the we had he had a CEO life, right? We had a car and like I lived a far more privileged life than my classmates in school and even my college friends, most college friends. So on, like I never traveled by train or bus. It was always flight. I always had a chauffeured car and all of that. My dad and mom come from very modest backgrounds themselves, so I think they overcompensated with the Yash and I in some way. But he sat us down and he told us very clearly that, guys, look, you guys are going to college and you guys will take care of education. Looks like you want to study in India, so I don't need a lot of money for that. So I'm going to quit this job and do this whole startup thing where I'm going to put in a significant amount of savings. We have a couple of homes, and that's pretty much where our asset base is. It's a very honest conversation. I think it's absolutely outstanding. I don't know how many parents do that with kids. And we said, look, our monthly lifestyle, we live in the same house, but we may not go to the US every year, or we may not do some of these things for a few years until the company settles down. And which is what happened. So that is when I came to Nagpur. And, I lived in Nagpur and I couldn't see my mom and dad through it, but I think he decided to be an entrepreneur at 50. And I saw him whiteboard from the initial days. His co-founder was a professor of computer science at IIT Kanpur, who in his days was JE rank 2 or something, which for me was like a big deal. I was like, wow, like my dad is doing some really cool techie stuff. He built out Airtight and sold it in 2018. So I saw the whole journey, and it did influence me from an idea standpoint. It did influence me from a risk-taking standpoint. I said, if my dad, coming from the background that he's come from, given where he had reached in the family, he was like the most, by far the most educated and earning and all of that person. I took a risk at 50. 50 to 60 is when most people monetize their careers. Like they earn the most money, right? And he was getting CEO jobs at other places and so on. And he didn't do that. Waited to start, backloaded the returns. And I'm like, if he could do it, given all the conditions, he had 2 kids, and my mom was a homemaker, so not earning it, significant risk. And he kind of did a fantastic job. If he can do it, then why not me, man? Like, it was an influence from that standpoint. Of course, he continued. He invested in the company, put in quite a bit of money, and which I returned, thankfully, many times over. So this is small repayment for all the things that our parents do for us.
Okay. Oh, it's amazing. Okay.
But I'll tell you what, dinner time conversations with him are amazing, right? How do you I've seen him struggle. Like 2009 was hard for them. Okay. Tech company, most customers in the US. 2008, 2009 was very bad. I've seen him fire like 40 or 50% of his staff, many of whom were friends of mine at that time, or more like we used to play cricket on Sundays, stuff like that. So I've seen him go through like emotional pain. The exit was, he hired a CEO, didn't work out. So 15 years, you run a company, you go through all of this, right? So I've seen him go through it, and he's very strong through it all. Amazing.
Mhm. Nice. I'm sure the influence must have been like amazing. So, and it's amazing to hear what you were just mentioning. Now, another thing that I really wanted to ask. Now, this was not exactly a follow-up question of what we were talking, but you've been very active on LinkedIn, and I remember one of the posts that you had mentioned about one of like your mentors telling you like what's the difference between business and dhanda. And so it might sound little crude, but I think that was something very important, and especially given that you are in the FMCG thing, so it's not going to be like all very what I could say, it's not going to be very high end and stuff like that. So that's where I think that must have again been something very insightful. So can you just tell the viewers about that as well? So how
Yeah.
important is these advices from all these folks that you gather over time, and how it essentially ends up building up the brand and overall the ethos of the company.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have been very lucky, Gayatri. We have been very lucky to have outstanding investors who have been zoom out, zoom in equal measure, who have been hands off when we have wanted them to be.
Uh-huh.
The worst thing investors can do is get involved when founders don't want them to. It's the
Right.
worst thing. Like I've seen it happen. I now invest significantly on my own and resist the temptation to kind of tell founders what I think. Even just calling them and telling them what I think is sometimes just burdening, right? But we've had these McKinsey partners who are like my bosses, so I respected them coming into the relationship. And we had two venture capital firms in consumer space, right? Fireside and Sixth Sense. Again, very, very different in their approach, but fantastic founders themselves, Kaval and Nikhil. We've had two global strategic companies which are 2 centuries old each, right? That's 400 years of experience at coming. Reckitt, Benckiser, and Colgate Palmolive. And when you talk about businesses that are valued $100 billion plus, that means their entire 300,000 people staff is at your behest to do something, right? If I want to do something in R&D, I can always call up someone in New Jersey, which is Colgate's $4 billion investment for. They have 1,500 cows, and they test toothpaste on bovine teeth because bovine teeth are structurally more similar to human teeth, and they have 1,500 PhDs there. So, I mean, that's the access we have if we want, right? The question is, how do you ask for it, and when do you ask for it, and how much do you ask for? My view is founders build their own businesses, investors, advisors cannot build. If you are stuck, you can soundboard. In all likelihood, you have the answers. You just need someone to validate. So find validation people around you. Keep an ecosystem where people are invested in your success emotionally. The reason we've gotten these investors, the reason why people want us to win, is because we have wanted them to win. Right? Colgate is invested in us because of strategically they believe that we can help them build out their e-commerce and D2C capabilities in India. In 2 years, we've actually we have made them take huge steps in that direction, starting from hiring their team to setting up their roadmap. We McKinsey did, right? We put a McKinsey team, strategy for 3 months, execution for 9 months. We actually did that outside of the work we do for our brand. So it is not something that was in the shareholders agreement or something that I was bound to do, but I did it because I just felt it was a 10-year investment with these guys. So my view is people will help you. You should help them back. Or let me frame this differently. Find good people. Do everything you can to help them. They will do everything they can to help other people and you, and the world becomes better. I think that's more important than agenda-driven relationships or whatever. And now we're coming to specifically what you said about mental business and dhanda, right? In FMCG, I agree. I had come from like McKinsey, which used to recruit the best people intellectually, to now Bombay Shaving Company, where I cannot even get 1/5 of the talent. Right? I cannot even afford it. I don't even need it. But the good part is there are diamonds in the rough everywhere. We have to keep identifying them. I have 10% of my staff I would recruit in McKinsey, even though they don't have the pedigree. And those 10% are around whom the company actually revolves. They are the ones who get the highest increments. We are very capitalist when it comes to treating our employees, right? Being equal is actually being unfair on these things. So we revolve the company around them. They grow very quickly, and we keep trying to build in a cultivation of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't know whether that answers your question of how do you use advice, but yeah, that's our overall belief system.
So another question here, since we are talking about mentors and investors, so how important would you say, the role of angel investors here? So because, there are a lot of early stage startups here. So, if there's some advice or some, anything that you can tell others, like how exactly they should go about pitching to angel investors and how you can then take it forward. So how you can, think at that scale where an investor would be willing to invest into it and all those things. I mean, those better than me, so over to you on
Yeah.
that question.
Yeah. So my view simply is that investor investing in a company is a two-way transaction. No one's doing anyone an obligation.
Yeah.
The founder's job is to create a vision for returns to shareholders. If the return vision is clear and your execution slash your conviction today. So if you're a very early stage company, maybe your traction may not be there, but today you have some reason to believe. If it is high, then investors should be fighting with each other to invest in the company. If you're having to really beg, you don't have leverage in the term sheet, your valuation is getting squeezed, then my view is that you're going in the wrong way, right? My view is build businesses or build visions to build businesses which are attractive to investors, and as founders be honest on returning the capital quickly. Okay. For example, this 4 crore that I spoke about coming from angel investors, we had that 4 crores kind of over a period of time, over 3.5 years, got 5.5 to 7.5, depending upon when they came in. Right? We forced them to exit up to 6.5 crores, even and keep the profits in the company, because we felt that it was a loan, right? You have to force returns to happen. When you start doing that as a founder, you start developing goodwill in the ecosystem. Okay, fine, this guy is like will look at our exits and so on. Second is the business has to be able to absorb capital. Businesses die more because of indigestion of capital than starvation of capital. So fine, like if you see Bombay Shaving Company, we have not raised a lot of money. Like over 5 rounds of financing, we've raised like 120 crores. It is a very small amounts of money compared to like some of the check sizes people are writing nowadays, right? You don't need it. FMCG is a 60% gross margin business. You don't need a lot of money. You need it for growth. Fine, fair enough. My simple view is valuation of the company should be 10 times the money that has been burnt till date. Simple. If you're putting in 1 rupee, if you're not trading 10 rupees of valuation, and by valuation I mean liquid valuation, right? Either someone's buying out secondary or the company can IPO, one of these two. So I think founders, the job is with founders. I think angels will come moment that clarity is there.
Nice, amazing. So Shantanu, I actually have a whole lot of questions, but I think we are at the halfway mark, so I would now unmute everyone else and we can just take some more questions from others, and maybe if time permits, I have like truckloads of questions. Okay, so
Sure.
let me just quickly
guys, you can put it on chat if you want, unmute, and I don't know, whatever you guys say.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, guys. So it's open for discussion. So anyone who wants to have questions for Shantanu. So I'm gonna stay on mute.
Yeah, or you can put on chat. You can unmute and.
Yeah, if anyone wants to put it on chat, I'll be happy to take it up.
Ankur Raj, if you have questions, please ask them. You seem to have a lot in your day. Ankur Raj used to work at Bombay Shaving Company for a while. Left for CAT preparation. That is the wrong forum to ask him his current score.
Yeah, I think Ankur is unmute, so I think he does have questions. So.
Hi, Shantanu. Satish here.
Hi, Satish. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. Okay, good. So, how is your distribution and branding plans over the next 1 year?
What is our distribution and branding plan for the next 1 year?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a heavy question. Got a lot of layered answers. Okay.
You are in that space. You are in that space itself. Okay. Yeah.
I'm just kind of trying to prioritize breadth of answer to depth of answer. Okay.
Right,
so I'll take it one by one. I'll take it one by one.
Yeah.
This distribution, right? We're in categories where consumers, we have to be where consumers are buying. Consumers are not going to come to new channels to buy a shaving foam or a razor. Like they're going to want a razor and they're going to go to channels of comfort. It could be Amazon, it could be a store near their home, it could be wherever. We have to be there and be a consideration brand. So when a consumer wants to buy a shaving cream, for example, and the consumer goes to a kirana ka dukan or is in a big bazaar store or is buying on Big Basket, they search for shaving cream in whatever way they're doing in that store. We have to be a top 3 brand showing up. That's the way distribution is going to happen for us. Now, if I were to talk about on-screen distribution, it's much easier to solve because inventory is infinite. So you just have to look at every platform there is, build a fantastic website, build all the platforms, spend money on those platforms, and make sure that you're a top 3. So we're already a 17% share on Amazon in shaving. There are 15% share on Big Basket in men's grooming. The tricky part of distribution is really offline, because that's where complexity of physical stores becomes very real, right? And it has inventory implications, it has investment implications, it has people workforce implications, it has lock-in and working capital implications. So that's a tougher problem to solve. One quick silver bullet there is the investors we have. So Colgate and Reckitt are probably amongst the most well-penetrated companies in India, probably second, if at all, to ITC only, right? So using their distribution reach will be a very big priority for us. But idea is very simple: be where the customer is buying. Wherever the customer is buying your category, be there. Coming to branding, I think that's a more that's a goal by 1,000 passes approach. The idea in branding is around 3 things: content, community, and commerce. Content is core. Find the consumer insight and build really engaging, visually delightful content, right? Whether it's video, static. YouTube is a fantastic thing that's happening. Instagram Reels, people are engaging. So the kind of media sophistication is so high today compared to 15, 20 years back, where 20 years back, you could only do television, newspaper, radio, holdings, magazines. That's pretty much it, right? 4 or 5 media choices, put in one message, and that's it. That's how brands like Haldiram and Nirma and Ghadi and Lakme built out. But today, I think there are like 5,000 unique choices of putting content. So that gives, if you can choose well, you can be very efficient about it. Idea is to build out great content, really targeted stories, and keep consumer cohorts coming back to you and your destinations. Build communities of people who talk about your product. It's hard for Bombay Shaving Company for 2 reasons. One, the brand is men don't talk about brands. Like, you'll never see 3 women will easily talk about lip color. Okay, it's socially acceptable for 3 women to say, "Hey, I love your lip color. Where do you get that?" Or, "I love your hair. Where do you get it cut? What shampoo do you use? I love the texture." Very like 2 sisters, a mother and daughter. Very easy, right? 3 guys, "Oh, tera daadi bahut sahi hai. Tu kaun sa tel lagata hai?" Impossible conversation. So guys don't talk about it. Number 1, the brand. Number 2, the brand stays in the bathroom. You can't even show it. Unlike, for example, shoes or apparel, where again guys don't have so many conversations about, but because you're wearing it and you're going out, people see it and people will buy it. So word of mouth is kind of subconscious without the verbal cues. In our case, it's not either. So we have to really focus on community building through online, brand to consumer communication, stuff like that. So critical. Those are 2 kind of, those are the two broad branding and distribution plans for the year.
Hey, Shantanu.
Good.
Hi,
Hey,
Shashikant.
Shantanu. Hey, how are you? Good.
Very good.
Good.
Very good.
Yeah. So, this would be useful for a lot of people, including me, in terms of for every business, you start with some assumptions. You have some kind of, predefined or preconceived notion about how you want to run your business, start and run. And during the process, you get to know, the assumptions. Some of those assumptions are not valid. So what were those assumptions which were not valid, and what were those insights which you then incorporated and fine-tuned your business model?
Some very amateur assumptions we had going in. By amateur, I mean today I laugh at myself. And I'm also very, very conscious of the fact that 5 years later, I laugh at a lot of things I think about today. So I think that's just a learning trajectory that all of us have. Very quickly, right? Number 1, I felt that people will buy the brand because the brand packaging and the visual language is appealing. I just thought I could sell 1,000 rupee razor. Ridiculous assumption. You can sell 1,000 rupee razor, but the number of people who will buy it is very few, however well designed it is. Okay. Second assumption was that if I were to limit in our category, if I were to limit focus on a very few number of products, I could change habit of consumer to moving towards those products. Again, very, 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 very bad assumption. Number 3, I felt I could build categories without a lot of marketing money. I felt I could create pre-shave as a category in India just by online communication. Just a bad assumption. On the other hand, I felt that if we communicate enough, more and more men will try buying the products, and women are the way to enter the man's life. Those are assumptions that were counterintuitive at the time. For example, our Bombay Shaving Company brand is a very soft brand. Okay, it's blue and white and green and colorful, as opposed to other men brands which are, beer pure ladki patao type brands, right? They're brown and black and very macho in their entire appeal. We went the other way, right? And we built out brands which are appealing to women because our core belief was personal care is a maternal thing, and if it is not soft, it won't be picked up. And people are like, no, for men you need hard things and all that. We said, no, hold on, this is not beer, it's not a cigarette, it's a soap, and it's a shaving cream. So men are men, but when it comes to soaps and shaving creams, they still want soft stuff. That's an insight that worked very well for us. So that's why we've done so well compared to brands that went the deodorant route with personal care for men. So some assumptions did well, some didn't. I don't know. I mean, there's a whole motley list of assumptions that I could come back to where we went completely wrong, but these are the top of my head.
Yeah, very interesting. Just to follow up, a little bit follow up. I mean, a lot of people have that question in the mind that when you want to go to kind of like a B2C, especially also into the brand space, I mean, it takes a lot of money. So, the upfront money, that's a kind of a mindset people have, that this type of business, unless you have 2-3 crores in your pocket or at least lined up, don't enter into that space. So what would be your take and, to the people?
Yeah, I think if the product market fit is right, no, you don't need a lot of money. Primarily, Shashikant, because the gross margins of the category are very high. Like, I wouldn't say the same thing for apparel or even food and beverages. Processed food, for example, is complicated when it comes to gross margin. To make a good shaving cream, foam, soap, shampoo, this stuff, my goodness, it's commoditized manufacturing. The real premium is in the brand. And if you have a good brand, you see some of these new brands charging like crazy amounts of money, and a lot of people are picking it up. So they're not like small. When I saw the Red Bull numbers the other day, through the roof. It's a 1,000 crore company in India selling 100 rupee energy drinks, single SKU. Every person saying that, oh no, people won't buy above 35 rupees soft drink and all that with this raw pricing going down. You just look at the Red Bull story. So for the right product at the right price, people will pay. So margins are good. The question is, you need to have something which people will pay for. You need to that conviction needs to be there. So also, I think earlier, like I said before, like media was expensive, and it like a front page of Times of India will cost you 5 lakhs. You can't say I want 1 square inch, I want the whole thing, or I want a quarter page, right? So you need like a war chest of sorts for marketing. But today you don't. Facebook campaign runs on $1,000. You can start testing very quickly and become efficient. So that whole thing is kind of changing.
Mm-hmm. So what would be, I mean, if somebody really wants to take a cue from you and, as a young guy, wants to get into a kind of this space, into the space you are in, what should be the kind of the war chest at least he should have to begin with?
We made the mistake of launching a lot of products. My view is launch limited number of products, but be very sharp about the proposition. So our new brands, we're launching 4 brands outside of Bombay Shaving Company in the next. We've already launched 2, Herbitol Plus and Beardinator. You can check them out on Amazon or even the website. We're going offline. So we've actually launched much fewer SKUs and much sharper. Each SKU typically will take 3 to 4 lakhs of inventory, given minimum order quantity, and maybe 5 to 10 lakhs of escape velocity marketing, right? So 20 lakhs per SKU. You're going to launch 5 SKUs, 1 crore. Double that for some safety so you can sleep well for a few months, 2 crores. If in 2 crores you're not able to get to a 15 crore valuation, 15 crore valuation is 3 crore run rate. 3 crore run rate is roughly 25 lakhs a month. So you should be able to use 1.5 crores to get to 25-30 lakhs a month. If you can do that, then you've kind of returned the capital. At least you have taken the company to a 15 crore valuation where you can raise 3-4 crores. And then the 1:10 ratio keeps building up. And then you hopefully IPO, you sell the brand and move on to the next thing.
Yeah, very nice. Nice articulation.
Right. So there are
so many
the
halal brand. Someone wants to make something for Indian men makeup. Someone wants to build something, Colgate, right? So someone is building out this tubes are plastic. So let me make these tablets, which I can put in my mouth every day and brush with that. Instead of just taking toothpaste out of a tube. There's so many, like India is going to get really penetrated with every subcategory becoming large, right? So I think it's amazing. If someone here wants to build an FMCG company, no better time than now. Sorry, guys.
Great. Right. I think there are like a lot of questions have been getting these in the chat as well. So I'll ask Ashish to go next.
Okay.
All right. Hey Shantanu, hi.
Hi.
Ashish. Sorry you joined late, so I don't know much of the context over here. But I was just wanting to speak to you regarding two important things and my questions. The first question is, since we are primarily a community driven or community based businesses, in our kind of businesses, obviously the instant gratification from the consumer and of course from the investor side, like in terms of the network effects to kick in, that takes a lot of time, right? Because you have to build a foundation and basis that you get the revenue kicking in. My question is, when we're speaking in front of the investors, how do you sell this proposition, which is more community oriented, or which is more content oriented? How to make it much more stronger proposition? Your take on that?
So you're basically asking raising money?
Yeah. So in terms of raising money, and they'll probably ask you about the customers as well.
Understood. Yeah. So in our case, right? I think most cases, investors will look for, you can't prove community.
Yeah.
Investors will look for like some proxy or triangulated proxies for community, and obviously the best triangulated proxy for community is top line, right? How many people are really buying in? How many people are buying in again and again? So if you have the metrics, you can just divide. If you're building a consumer brand, you can say L0, L1, L2 metrics. L0 metrics are pure revenue, and then L1 metrics are conversions, product reviews. The good part about sophisticated data is you can show a lot of it, right? So reviews, what are the number of impressions, what are my conversion rate, what is my cost per click, stuff like that. And then I'll tell you what, if investors really, if there are long-term consumer investors, they are very smart in doing dipstick analysis of your business. Very smart, right? They will order all your products without you knowing that they've ordered them, and they will test them out. They will give it to 10 people in different strata. They'll give it to their driver. They'll give it to their friend. They'll give it to some young teenager in the family. They'll give it to the old grandfather. They'll give it to all the people who are relevant for your brand. Take feedback in detail. They will read up reviews of your product on Amazon and call up few of those customers and ask them what they felt. They will have a very good view of your brand and product proposition, probably even better than you. So a lot of people, a lot of investors who do diligence on us, I actually, whether we allow them to invest or not, I'm very clear about basically taking their dipstick reports on us, because they know this very, very well. So you don't need to pitch it. You just need to build a good business. They will figure it out. If the business is good, they'll figure it out. You will never need to convince someone that your business is good if it's not. I mean, if it is, they'll know it.
So here's the fun part. So I think even I agree to point. Obviously your matrix should be very evident enough for them to figure out, okay, this has potential, right? I think unfortunately for our case, even the top line, what you said.
I don't know what your case is, by the way. So
just to long story short, I think we are a service based. We are a marketplace.
What the company do you run?
Rookiedic.com. It's a sports online marketplace.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, it's not my product; it's someone else's product, and then of course I have to somehow convince them that this is a community-based business. Now the problem is my top line is not justifying. Obviously my vision. So in that case, any particular advice for me, one particular thing which I should be focusing on obsessively?
I think there has to be a very clear path to scale plan for you, like very clear, right? We are building it out for us, right? We are a men's personal care brand building out 4 brands more. So we're going to be a 5-brand company. My vision is not, we are a 100 crore brand. My vision is not to take 100 crore to 300 crore. Our vision is to build a 1,500 crore company in the next 3 to 4 years. Okay. Now, it's impossible for someone outside of the business to really understand how, because they're evaluating 20 businesses. So the job is on us, on me, to paint what it means to build a 0 to 1. So if you have taken, if you have taken 45 crores and 4 years to build a 100 crore brand, the next 100 crore brand should be 20 crores and 2 years. The next 100 crore brand should be 10 crores and 1 year. And sometimes we'll have a silver bullet which will be profitable from day one, and we can build a 350 crore brand if we get the insight right. What do I have that will prove to an investor that, okay, this is the right guy to bet on, because there is clear granularity of the plan. That's the job we have. I think the path to scale clarity is crucial for you. To say, okay, you know what, I run these 5 basketball courts, these 10 football courts. I have these 50 players in Nagpur who keep coming here all the time. I want to scale 50 to 5,000. I believe that 60-year-old plus badminton player, I'm just throwing things in there, right? 60-year-old plus badminton is the best place to be. Here are the 20,000 people. Here is, I'm going to get them for free. Here's how we're going to scale. Whatever that waterfall is. So if you can create granularity, people will buy it. And by the way, to be very honest, between you and me, investors like to believe a good story. So your job isn't as hard as one might imagine it to be. If you convince yourself, you'll convince an investor. Typically, they want to believe that something great can happen. That's just the nature of the business.
Got it. Just one last question without hijacking this session. Shantanu, you've built successful businesses. How important is mental health? Just motivating yourself and being mentally fit. Like, any advice on that? How do we keep, just exercising our brains and stuff like that? How do we keep that?
Like, I'm not an expert, but I do have very close experience of my directly close family members suffers from depression, highly productive depressive, by the way. So does that. So I have a sense. I've had a couple of founder friends who've gone through it. I think come. Exercise as much as you can. Spend time learning something new. Spend time with friends. Socialize. They're all very standard things, but I think you get bogged down by because again, make distinction in your mind between task and stress. Okay, entrepreneurs index high on stress, index low on tasks. At least established entrepreneurs will not have a lot of things to do. They'll have 3 meetings and a couple of emails to send out. They're thinking continuously about what next, right? Try to minimize the stress. You can maximize the tasks. Those never create issues, but minimize the stress and find ways to do it. Everyone has a different wiring. So we can have I'll ask Gayatri to share my WhatsApp number. Just feel free to stay in touch on that. I'm happy to spend more time.
Thanks, man. And best of luck for your future endeavors.
Thanks. All the best to you, man. I think sports is awesome.
Yeah.
I just today, dude, before the class, I was at one of these rock climbing places in Delhi. It's fantastic what's happening at the sports team. It's incredible.
Aapka jo ex team member Ankush Raj, we are fortunate enough to have him right now, so he's working with me.
Very good. Fortunate or not is a different story. I have lots to connect on separately.
Thanks, man. This was a pleasure.
Okay. So lots of questions there. So I'll ask.
Guys, we have enough time. By the way, I don't know what I have. I can spend time, so you don't have to rush through it. I'm happy to spend time. People can log off.
Right, so, yeah, I'll get Aditya Raghavan to go next. Aditya, you there? Actually, Aditya had sent his question in chat. So.
Stage fright. I'm kidding.
All right. Let me actually, we'll sort that out later. Someone has raised hand. Bappa. I don't know what the name here is. I mean, I'm not sure if that's the first name. Would you like to go? Okay. Yeah. So please unmute and go ahead. Yeah. I think now you're on.
Yeah, thank you very much for the session. Really fortunate to have this conversation. So I have actually 2 questions. Okay. So
love your name, by the way. Is your name Bappa?
Yeah, my name is Bappa. Yeah, Bappa Aditya.
Wow. Bappa is Marathi is like God. Is it based on the Marathi one, or is your language is something else?
No, I am Bengali, so my total is Bappa Aditya.
Okay, got it. That's a really cool, convenient short form.
Yeah, that's why I got confused. Bappa, is that really the first name or not? Sorry about that. Yeah. Anyway, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. So Shantanu ji, actually, I have just 2 questions. I have recently started one startup, not a crore rupee one. Okay, so whenever someone talk about crore rupee, I'm very afraid. I'm just a middle class background. Okay, so we are just 3 years into business. So first year we did 0, second year we did 5 lakhs. Okay, and third year, I hope this financial year we'll do 10 lakhs. Okay, so that is kind of the situation. So we are a IoT analytics and data science kind of company, and we have no full-time manpower, all part-time only. Okay, so do you think this kind of initiative can go successful? So this is the first question.
Do you think it can become big?
Yeah, now the second question comes here. Actually, now I am getting businesses. I have customer in Belgium and US. But the problem is the kind of product I deliver. It needs like good kind of people, like good cloud personnel, good IoT, good analytics. But they are like 5 years, 7 years, 10 years of experience, earning already more than 1 lakh a month. So if I hire them full time, I can do more business but I cannot pay them salary like they are earning now. So that is my problem to go into full time with them. But I can hire like juniors, but they won't do the quality kind of work that we are doing now for what we are getting the business. So it is kind of what is to be done from this stage.
Understood. Hey, so sorry. Yeah, Bappa, my view simply is that I think the you have to take a call whether this exists or not. Like I think you can never learn how to swim by just poking your toe in the water. And it is always going to be scary to swim. Okay. But until you jump in, you will never know. And you'll always feel, oh, I know the temperature of the water. I know my toe is feeling good. You know, it feels nice. But can I jump in and like, hey, my clothes will get wet? Or, you know, what if I drown? Sure. But by putting a toe in the water for 3 years, you should get a basic sense of whether you can swim or not. My view is I have no idea about your business. I think this is more a mental problem for you to solve than a business problem to solve. You will figure out a way to pay. Okay, so broadly, service businesses like yours can fund salaries through customers. Okay, you can basically, if you have 3 customers, someone in Belgium, someone in the US, you can take a purchase order from them for your business, and then try and find them to give an advance to you, and then hire people, get contracted, people to work for you. Maybe get one programmer and tell her she will be on for 3 months, and then another programmer for another 6 months. Whatever. You will know best how to do it. But you are also doing this part time.
Yes.
Okay. And do you have savings for 2 years without salary?
Yeah. Like I have family also to run, and like no one is supporting my business.
Understood. So you're a single income. Okay. So your family depends on your income. Okay. That makes it a little complicated, by the way. So, do you have friends who can? Do you have a rich friend?
Yes. I talked to few of my friends, and I am now like they have agreed like I can raise 10 lakhs.
You can raise 10 lakhs. Okay. Look, find a way to find a way to service 1 or 2 customers in the most excellent way. Find ways for the customers to fund it. Whatever the customers cannot fund through advances, find ways for your friends to fund it. Give them generous equity in the business to start with. Maybe a profit sharing of some kind. Hire 1 or 2 people. See whether you like it. But do it full time. And draw salary yourself. If your family depends on your business, on your income, draw salary. Draw whatever sustenance salary. You don't need to draw market salary, but draw sustenance salary for yourself. So founders who put themselves through a lot of financial stress, give themselves little chance to do well. Okay. So from there, people feel like guilty. Oh, I'm the founder. I have so much equity. How should I take salary? All rubbish. Pay yourself fairly. Pay yourself commensurate to what the scale of the business is. But pay yourself. Because if you don't pay yourself and you start cutting down on your school kids education, this, that, and the other, you give yourself more chance to fail, right? And see where it goes. My view is find a way to create 1 year of breathing time through these things. Maybe I'll have a separate discussion with you offline. The issue is I don't understand your business. Had you been running a brand, I could have given you very tactical and honest and accurate advice. I don't know what this business looks like, so I might be completely misplaced. Maybe there are other people on this group who can help you, but I'm happy to help you think through it and problem solve it fairly well.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All the best, man. Your honesty is quite endearing.
Yeah, actually, like everywhere people talk about growth. Like I have seen company 15 crore valuation, revenue is nothing. Kind of they are losing, but how that happens? So I am like believer.
Tell me about it. We raised at a 20 crore valuation on an idea. We didn't even have an office. But yeah, different horses.
I don't know how this merchant banker do such kind of valuation just on future cash flow. That too is projected only. So I don't know. So
Flipkart was sold on future cash flows, bro.
Yeah.
Forget about a 15 crore seed round. We had a $16 billion acquisition on future cash flow. Valuation is an art, man. It's never a math.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Over to you, ma'am.
Well, Gayatri, I'm very honest on these things. Like, so
that's what we want.
If you're recording it, please be careful about where it goes. keep it discreet.
Only after your permission, we'll put it on YouTube channel.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. So Shantanu, a couple of things. First of all, I have a complaint. I wanted to interview you. You are like one of the most high-profile persons on LinkedIn, and I wanted that opportunity to build my own brand. But anyhow, I mean, 90%
I
of
was
my brand
a
owner
soft corner
is
for Gayatri. Gayatri and I go back a long way. We used to.
That's just joking.
She used to
Yeah, I
be
understand.
our batch topper in all the cat mocks, and also all of us in the hostel would kind of benchmark her scores to beat and all that. So I like that's really a cool privilege. But yeah, Karthik, happy to kind of engage.
I mean, she still happens to be my best achievement so far. But anyway, let's. So my question to you, Shantanu, is that what are your 3 honest recommendations for rookie mistakes that startup founders should avoid? See, most of the times we talk to successful people and we ask about success things, but I think it's equally important to find out learn about mistakes and things that you should avoid. And as a early stage startup founder, I think this is something which I'm really interested about, and I'm fairly certain that a lot of others would want to know. So maybe 3 do's and 3 don'ts for startup founders from your perspective.
Yeah, early stage, right? Okay. Number 1, have a clear vision of the end goal. I think this is something which a lot of people will want you to do. It's hard to do it. It's hard to do it because many times you don't believe yourself that you can do it. Like you kind of, it's a castle in the air and you know it is. And you feel, a lot of founders feel embarrassed about telling their visions. And they feel they're very salesy. They feel that people will make fun of them. Don't do that. Like my view is put down, maybe for yourself, put down on paper really where you want to go and what are the big milestones you want to hit, by when, how. They have a very clear blueprint of like a McKinsey strategy document, 100-pager on what's the roadmap to get to where you want to get to. So define the end goal and then don't think current forward, think end goal back. There's a big difference in mindset. That's number 1. Number 2, I think, is choose your team very wisely. If you're choosing co-founders, equal co-founders, choose them wisely. If you're building a founding team who's salaried and with some significant equity, choose them wisely. It's tempting to go with people you have to balance comfort. You find comfort in friends and people you know from before. Sometimes it depends on your personality, right? If you're a very close friend, etc., then, or if it's a spouse, sometimes things become very tricky. I've seen people do it very successfully, working with friends and spouses and brothers and so on, or sisters, siblings. I've seen a brother-sibling founder pair. One of them kind of completely, like their relationship was on the rocks, and the other one where they kind of really complemented each other well and did well. So go and completely eyes open on this. I would never be able to work with a spouse. Never. Like, just impossible. Just given the nature of who I am, and just knowing it is good. Like whatever the outcome is, knowing it. Third thing is, I think be very financially prudent. No, by financially prudent, I don't mean be frugal. I mean prudent, right? People have this fear, again, I think I don't know whether the Maharashtrian Bengali thing about being service minded or frugal or whatever. People feel that spending money is bad. We have been brought up needing to save. We've been brought up in a saving mindset. All of that stupidity. Like startups have to grow. We have to grow. So you have to invest to grow. And if you invest without full conviction, I mean, putting in 5 crores, 10 crores into a marketing campaign isn't easy. You have to trample over your natural instincts and still do it. So find people who can do it for you, or build the DNA to do it yourself. So there are 3 things I would kind of say. Have a clear vision. Choose your early team very, very carefully and know what it means. The no-brainer advice on point number 2 is just go with a professional connect. Like ask an investor or someone to connect you to someone, put down the job description clearly, put down expectations on the role, salary, etc. very clearly. I think professional relationships become personal very easily. Personal relationships becoming professional is not that easy. So find ways to do that. And third thing is be financially literate, prudent, invest more.
Thank you.
I don't know whether that was helpful.
No, exactly. No. It does. I think it's going to go on LinkedIn as well. So don't worry. I was just taking this.
Okay.
All right. Let me go to Divya next. It's a long list we have here. So.
Sure. I can't
Divya?
see these questions though. Like, if the questions are similarly themed, I can actually combine them and talk to people, but I
Mm,
can't see them.
Yeah. Hello. Hi, Shantanu.
Hi,
Yeah,
Divya.
hi. So I have tried to also connect you on WhatsApp, but I think you were quite, you must have misread it. So yeah, my question
No,
is,
I was just lazy. It's okay. You can say what it is.
yeah,
Lazy,
no,
deprioritized.
okay, okay,
I will
sure, no,
always find time for things if I want to. So Divya, I mean,
yeah,
let's. I'm sorry about that, but go
no,
ahead. Good
mm,
forum.
yeah. So basically, so we have just entered into the loyal competition, and we have got many products in cosmetics,
Oh
and
yeah, you're the natural herbal manufacturing
yeah,
company.
organic, natural, yeah, yeah.
Arey, yaar, I
So
forward your message to my team. Either Deepak or Rohit or someone will reach out to you 100%.
okay,
But
okay,
anyway,
sure.
go on. You can ask another
Yeah,
question.
so yeah, my question is, we have a lot of innovative products, and the goal or the vision of the co-founders and myself is, to not take investors in, and we want to, and this is the question to you, that can we run a company based on goodwill from the customers, or is there
Yes,
any other way that we can
yes,
go ahead? Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Look, you have to choose two things.
yeah.
Either you give the business money or you give the
Mm-hmm,
business time.
mm-hmm. Okay.
If you have a good product which customers love,
Yeah.
you can fast track the time.
Mm-hmm,
Like Haldiram's took 30 years
mm-hmm.
to get to 10 crores of revenue. 30 years.
I don't want
Okay.
to do that. Yeah.
So then if you don't want to, if you're not patient and you're saying, boss, I want to flip it in 5 years, build a 200 crore brand in 3 years, whatever, then you
Uh-huh.
can't, because someone on this call rightly said, I think Ashish said, right?
Hmm.
You need word of mouth to happen.
Hmm.
People are not going to buy the product and talk about it immediately. They'll buy
Hmm.
it, they'll use it, then someone in the house
Hmm.
will use it, then
Yeah,
5 other
yeah.
people will try it.
That's a
Then
big.
6 months someone will talk about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Doesn't work.
Hmm.
So either you let that process
Okay.
play out naturally,
Okay.
which will take time. So it will take 6, 7 years, 8 years, in which case,
Okay. Yeah.
and it will be the growth the way Bappa is talking about, right? 5 lakhs
Yeah.
a year, 10 lakhs the next, 30 lakhs the next, and so on.
Hmm.
And by the way, these businesses also see hockey sticks very quickly. Okay,
Hmm.
so it's not like you need decades to do it,
Hmm.
but you cannot predict, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
The other
Yeah.
way is to say, I'm going to put 100 crores in the business and
Yeah.
really explode it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I have the conviction that if I put 100 crores, I'll build it to 100 crore revenue
Okay.
in the next 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You have to choose whether you want money or you want time.
Okay. Sure. I get it.
You can't do neither.
Got it. Got it. Sure. So yeah. So goodwill money.
Unless you're like some real. The third option is to be viral. But that's a tough bet to take, right? You want to be
Yeah.
viral like Pokemon or one of these random Clubhouse or one of these. Clubhouse virality is completely paid. People think it's viral. It's not. It's completely paid.
Uh-huh. I mean, yeah. So yeah. Okay. So we will have to find for customers who can take us to the level that we want to, probably.
Are you a B2B business or a B2C business? Are you going to work
Yes.
with companies like us or are you going to work with consumers directly?
So our plan is to do B2B, because we tried B2C
Okay.
and we were not convinced doing that.
You were not convinced or your customers were not convinced?
We were not
Okay.
convinced. Yeah.
Because?
Because basically we couldn't do the right mix of marketing and distribution kind of things. Yeah.
Okay. By the way, you have to understand, if you're a
Hmm.
B2B business, your margins will be thin. You're not a brand business, you're a manufacturing business.
Yeah. Yeah. Correct.
Investors don't come in manufacturing businesses quickly.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. I understand.
So you will have to index on time and shorten that quickly. For a
Okay.
brand business, that's a big business,
Yeah.
but it's a tough business.
Yeah. I understand.
My advice to you, knowing very little about your business, is if you have the formulations, find ways to
Yeah.
build a brand around it. That's where
Yeah.
value creation happens through brand.
Correct. Understand.
Indigo Paint is 650 crores top line, trading
Yeah.
at 13,000 crores on the market.
Yeah.
650
IPO.
either a manufacturing business will be 1,000 crore valuation.
Sure.
In brand, it's a 10,000 crore valuation. If you want to create value and create wealth for yourself, so value, it will happen through brand. If you have a product market formulation fit,
Uh-huh.
please focus on the brand. I don't know how much you tried before you shut it down and went to B2B, but my suggestion would be to build a brand. But anyway, we can take that offline.
Yeah,
Gayatri,
we
go ahead.
can. Sure. Sure. Thank you.
No problem. You're welcome.
Hey, I think Adrian had a question on similar lines, B2B, B2C kind of queries. So, I think it's good to club this logically now.
Shantanu, how are you doing, man? Been a while.
Hey, dude, what's up, man? It's so good to see you.
So when Gayatri said Adrian, you probably didn't recognize. She had to say Pinto only, then you would have stood up.
No.
Sorry.
So good
But
to see you.
I just had a quick question there. So we're in the B2B space also, right? So we're
Yeah.
working with manufacturers to help them digitize. India being a huge market for that, to take people from pen and paper and Excel to more real-time information tracking, and really we want to bust that whole AI ML myth. Not really myth, that whole buzzword that's going on right now needs to start from somewhere, and so we're trying to get companies to start from there and then go into that. So that is probably just a quick intro into what we do. I know it's very high level, but one thing I found similar between the B2B and B2C spaces, right, is the initial offerings and how you keep adding to the offerings. Like, for example, in your case, you had only one razor and a couple of accessories. You started with that. I'm sure you may have had multiple product ideas in the very beginning. And but how did you prioritize which ones to develop and launch? Because developing and launching takes cost, takes time, takes effort.
Yeah.
How did you prioritize them? How did you figure out what to go next? What to go with next, and then just take it up to how many other products you have right now?
Yeah, it's a good question, man, and we struggle with this every day. So, I think there are two different questions, right? You should, I mean, in your business, it's likely to think about what feature to ship.
Yes, it's a
right.
Yes.
What feature what feature do I ship with maximum ROI, minimum friction for the customer, right?
True.
And those are kind of more difficult questions to solve. I don't have the full understanding. For us, I'll give you a context of what we do. For us, it's very easy to ship products which fail because we learn something from failures. For example, we launched the most ridiculous range of face washes a couple of years back. Like, they just were badly priced, high, like in tubes, which were not the prettiest looking, like just bad, right? But we did it to test whether the clicks on particular ingredients. We wanted to see whether a green clay face wash would get clicks on Amazon. So the objective was different. So what we have done in the company is, we said 5 lakhs it takes to launch a product. We're going to put 30 products a year. Right? That's 1.5 crores parked away for investment in learning. And then it's what we call screw it money, right? 1.5 crores to learn about what the market is going to be and going to do. Even if it doesn't lead to revenue creating product lines, it's fine. As long as the learnings then lead to range number 2. For example, our new range of charcoal face washes that started doing really well. So insights came in, we built it out, we changed the pricing, and we launched. So for us, launches of products are more learning investments than they are consumer investments. We did struggle with saying, okay, if we launch a bad product, customer experience goes bad, but that's fine. 1 in 1,000 is fine. It's okay. But for you guys, I think it's more around saying, okay, I think the real template for this would be to say, how do I create minimum friction? What's maximum bang for the buck long term? And then what are some of the real customer delights? With shipping features, it's always about instant gratification for customers. Also, it leads to delight, right? Because you want to keep engaging the customers. So I think you would want to prioritize it along these 3 axes, and then put like ease of doing as a clear filter also. But I think this is again a complex problem solving, which maybe you, Srihari, will have to do with maybe 1 or 2 really people on this group who are experts at shipping features on scaled products in the manufacturing ecosystem. It might be interesting problem solving environment to be a part of.
Thanks, man. Thanks, appreciate that.
It's so good to see you, dude.
I know, we last saw each other in Karan's wedding.
Yeah. Oh wow, this is
and our third founder is also VNIT, and you probably know Hitanjan Sarkar. Yeah. So the 3 of us, and it's been a year, and we're still 3. We just recently graduated from the Target Accelerator Program cohort. So Target has Target retailer brand has an accelerator program in India and internationally.
Did we lose Adrian?
I think there's some issue with the video there. Okay. Anyway, so I think then we'll just quickly move on to the next one, and we are at 12:15 mark. So I think maybe we'll continue for another 15 minutes if that works. Okay. Yeah. All right. I think everyone would probably have a hard stop sometime or the other. All right. There were like a lot of questions. Maybe I'll ask Upkar to go next.
Gayatri, can you just copy paste all the questions and send it to me on WhatsApp? Let me have a look so I can at least club them into.
Sure. I'll do that.
Sorry, Upkar, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Shantanu.
Hi.
Yeah, so it is actually very insightful what you spoke all through. So thanks for great insights. So I have one question, may not be a business one, but a behavioral one. So Shantanu, you mentioned about the kind of work you did in McKinsey. You did good because you had this quick problem solving acumen, I would say. And
Yeah.
you also mentioned that it came in handy when you started Bombay Shaving Company.
Yeah.
So with your new brands, you're working on new brands. Plus, there would be a lot of situations, like where you have to have the problem solving acumen to be played in the current situation.
Yeah.
So how do you ration that between, like, because building a new brand is almost quick problem solving all the time.
Yeah.
Plus there are problems within your existing brand. So
Correct.
how do you balance that out, and how important is that skill for building a sustainable brand?
Yeah. So, look, so let me understand the question, right? Are you saying how do you build different problem-solving toolkits for different scenarios? Is that the question, or are you saying how do I balance prioritization of time between different things, or is
Yeah,
it kind of a
the
combination of both?
prioritization. Yeah, prioritization.
Okay. Yeah. So I think, and this is something which I've learned over a period of time, in which there's a founder, couple of founders who run this company called Tribo Hotels, who are my mentors, who kind of have told me how to think about my own time. So I do have a very clear view of where I want to cerebrally invest. Okay. Every Sunday and every month start and every quarter start, I know that, okay, I want to spend 3 hours this week solving these 3 problems on Bombay Shaving Company. And my approach to solving problems is not for me to get involved, but to bring in everyone and every resource possible to give us the best shot at solving the problem. My job is to structure and create an environment of solutioning, right? So that's my job as a founder, and that's the job of most founders, is to say, okay, fine, here's the problem that we need to, here are the 3 problems that we need to solve for Bombay Shaving Company this week or this month. Here are the 2 problems for the brands. In problem number A is our RTO is very high. Okay, return to origin. Our returns are coming very high. So how, like, I have to do the structuring. Okay, RTO is high. RTO is high because product portfolio that is being sent out is high, or geographical split that is being sent out is high, or a particular service provider is screwing up their SLAs or whatever. There are 3-4 big options. Then I bring in my head of logistics, my head of customer service, my head, and I ask them to come with enough information to be able to solve this now. So I basically create the issue tree, define the objective, create the issue tree, and bring in the right people, ask them to come well prepared. Once you do this much, for a problem, and it's probably 15-20 minutes of work, but that 20 minutes the founder has to put in, or the CEO, or whoever, that person has to put in, and then in 15 minutes the problem is solved broadly, or at least you leave the room with 5 hypotheses. And then you say, okay, but this is the prioritization of it, and then you quickly test and see what's happening, and then it's a rigorous follow-up to see whether it's working or not. So that's broadly how most execution tactical problems are solved. There are more strategic problems which are around how do you build a leadership team in the organization, right? Now, if I have to build a leadership team in the organization, I have to say, okay, fine, what the structure, what are the roles they're going to play, how much can the company afford from that standpoint. And then the people I go to are investors, because I will go to my top leadership recruiting firms, I'll go to investors, I'll set up interviews, I'll start bringing in profiles, I'll put it on LinkedIn, stuff like that. So again, more easy to start, but difficult to follow through for the next 2-3 months. So every problem is different. You have to figure out what you can do to make the problem start the solving process quickly, and then bring in people to take it through and follow through on enough times. When it comes to splitting time, dude, this is my job description, right? This is all I do for a living. This is all I do for a living. I have no other job. I don't have to sell my product in stores. I don't have to set Facebook ads. This is all I do. And on the side, I raise money when the company needs it. That's my job. So all the time, like all my time is on this. My only job is to prioritize problems. And a good metrics, by the way, I don't know, Upkar, whether you know about this, is the urgency importance matrix, right? So urgent, not urgent, important, not important. Not urgent, not important, ignore. Urgent, important, now. Important, not urgent, keep at the back of the mind for founder, because teams will forget this. Urgent, not important, teams will take care of on their own. So your job is to put problems in these buckets and make sure your management team, leadership team is solving them the right way. Important but not urgent problems are solely the founders. So if you have this metrics in mind, it's a nice way to kind of at least structure it for yourself.
Thank you, Shantanu. It was insightful.
All right. And then, I don't really know the questions here, but Tejas, Anil, and Aditya have questions as well. So maybe we could just quickly take these, and then, yeah, I think we'll anyway reach the 12:30 mark. So
Yeah.
I'll take next. Hi, Shantanu. This is Anil.
Hi, Anil.
Yeah, I'm the founder of this company called Donate Card. Yeah. So my question was more on creating content for the brands, right? I mean, and you need to do it continuously all the time. How do you really work on that? Maybe essentially we are also trying to create new brands with our company as well. So it would really help.
Yeah. The coolest part so for creating content, I think number one is build a great content team. Okay. Find out what kind of content you want to build. So if you're going to do a lot of visual, you're going to build a lot of product shots. Like talk to people who do content in different spaces, right? Apparel brands, like if you talk to Myntra content team, they have taken bowling alleys, converted them into ramps, and they literally have photographers at the end where you throw the bowling ball. They have photographers there. They have changing rooms where the pins are, and there are models coming in all the time. So in one day, they get between 7 to 10 lakh shots. 7 to 10 lakh shots because that's their catalog. And they do this like 4 seasons. So, summer, spring, fall, autumn. So apparel, they do their content. FMCG is more about making the product visual, having great production. So we rely a lot on video as much as we rely on influencer content. We rely a lot on self-made content from for people using the products. I think my view is find young people who are on Instagram and some of the content platforms for today. Don't hire people from agencies. They typically don't get it. They're 3 years behind the curve. Find people who have 20,000 plus subscribers on YouTube if you want to build a YouTube content channel. Find 10,000 followers plus on Instagram. Hire that individual. Even if she doesn't have a college degree and she's in 12th standard and she has to go to college, hire her and tell her 4 hours a day, I'll pay you $50,000 a month to create content for me only. I think content is a game where you and I will not be able to, I don't know about you, but I'm not able to do it. We hire people who have done it personally in their own lives. And then they'll do it for the brand. Pay them well, they'll do it for the brand. But you have to know what kind of content you need. That's the critical one.
That makes sense, yeah.
I would love to know about Donate Card. It sounds like an interesting name, so we can talk offline.
Yeah, sure. I'll write to you.
Thanks, Anas. Thank you. From Aditya Raghavan, marketing, how did you decide what would be the ideal channel? Did you use every available channel and test? Aditya, I think the idea is every channel will have a ease to do. For us, we have to be available wherever the customer is buying. So the more customers buying on the channel, the more relevant it is for us. We prioritize that way, and then we go on. So that's kind of a very simple approach. What stage of business do you decide that it might be time to approach an investor when you want unnatural growth? It could be on day one. I wanted unnatural growth on day one. It could be never. When you can say, okay, I want only natural growth. Sometimes conservative founders do that. So investments help you shorten time windows and give you unnatural step changes. When businesses cannot fund the growth, someone else has to fund the growth. So that's when equity funding comes in. If you're talking about approaching debt investors, different story. Valuation versus profitability of a company. Profitability is an input in valuation, Ketan. And it sometimes it's an important input, sometimes it's a non-important input. Depends on the business. Depends on the scale. So if you're looking at large company, tenured, private equity investor, wants 3x return over 5 years, sure, profitability is crucial. So looking at a venture fund, seed to Series A, Series B, growth capital, they know that monetization is still a fair bit away. Team is fantastic. Might be a completely different story. So profitability is a weak index in valuation. Time versus hockey stick investment approach depend on the business. Now, no metrics investors look for at calling it successful business. Depends. So if an investor can flip it at 5x return and that works for their fund cycle, great. If investor can wait for an IPO and get 10x, great. It all depends on their ROI CAGR, right? Or IRR. So typically investors want 20% IRR, 20-25% IRR. That's when they've kind of made a good investment. You've beaten the market or any other cost of capital, opportunity cost of capital they would have. So That's broadly. To take money from a pension fund and give them 15% IRR, they'll be happy. To take money from Sequoia Capital and give them 3x return in 4 years, they'll be very unhappy. So depends very much on funds and cycles and where you are in the investment side. 100 rupees, how much will I spend on what? In product development and how much in marketing? Depends on stage of business. Today I spend 20% on development, 80% on marketing. It will go down to 10 and 90. In the initial days, it was 80 and 20. So split moves. Typically, large scale businesses, pharmaceutical businesses have different ratios. So it depends very much on whether you're innovating and inventing or whether you're incrementally building a brand. Coca-Cola, for example, spends 0 on R&D. It's all on brand. One of the most valuable businesses in the world. Gillette, on the other hand, spends equally on R&D and marketing. They want to keep inventing. It's very much a business thing.
So I think then, unless Tejas and Aditya have the question, so then I think we're done.
Yeah. Hi, Gayatri.
Even I have a question. Yeah.
So should I go ahead first?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Hi, Shantanu. I don't know if you remember or not. We were studying in the first year of VNIT. We were together in section E. So my question, Aditya Bidwai.
Hey, dude, how are you, man?
Yeah,
Of course I remember.
Roll number 1.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember you very well. You were a day scholar, no?
Yeah, correct.
Metallurgy or civil?
Yes, metallurgy.
Metallurgy. Of course I remember. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
How are you?
So my question, I'm good. How about you? You're doing pretty well, so no need to answer that anyway.
No.
So my question is like that. See, you have now Reckitt Benckiser on board as an investor. I think so. There is some person who is actually mentoring you from their leadership side. Okay. I have worked with Reckitt Benckiser through my Infosys association, and I have found out they are very aggressive company. They want everything in quick turnaround time and all that. So you have your company culture till one point of time. Now they are on board. So are they influencing your working culture? In short, if any investor is coming on board, are they going to change your way of working or something on that line?
All depends upon the founder and the founding team.
Okay.
Indians typically find it hard to say no. Founders have to learn very quickly to say no. We have two large companies, $100 billion plus, right? Reckitt and Colgate, both huge, come with huge egos. Very successful, and rightfully, right? They're successful businesses have built out such amazing careers for so many people, 350,000 plus employees, so on. They are like elephants coming to an ant's birthday party. If they are not well behaved, they will crush everyone.
Yeah, correct.
So it is the founder ant has to keep them very well behaved. The first way to do it is to negotiate hard on terms.
Okay.
On paper, they should have very limited control. They should have very limited ability. They should be minority in the company initially. Tomorrow, see, they do a good job for you and they have patient capital. They have a bottomless pit of money. If the intent is there at the very top, they can change your fortune, right? But they have to be well behaved and they have to earn the right. Founder has to give them the right. If they decide, like so many times, I get 100 emails from Colgate and Reckitt. The good part is the lead investor, the person there I've told him, you are now Bombay Shaving Company, you are not Reckitt or Colgate. If I'm going to say no to someone in your system, you have to say no for me. I will not say no. You want the investment in my company to do well, which means you want me focused. If you want me focused, I cannot be distracted by this. किसी को internship के लिए भेजना है, please hire this person, please recruit that person. If we are investing in that other company, with founder से बात करो. Sure, I'll do it. But I will choose. Of the 100 requests you make, I will choose maybe 3 or 4.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. You have to understand and be on my side when I'm making those choices, and maybe be a part of the problem-solving cycle. That's the way to do it. The way to do it is to get someone there to be on your side, someone senior enough with voice and clout to come on your side, and then fight your battles. In the end, it's all about that. You have to find someone else to fight your battles in multiple other battlegrounds, right? That's the way to do it. See, most companies are also smart. Yeah, they know that if they made an investment in a startup, they don't let the startup be a startup. The investment is not worthwhile. So the last thing they want, even if they buy companies, by the way, these two companies, they prefer if the acquiring company is separate, the founder and CEO sit separately, different offices, etc., and they just take over the company and review it and find out and are responsible for shareholder communication. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the only way they get value. If they convert us
correct.
into Reckitt or Colgate, the investment is gone.
No, correct. That's correct. Completely correct.
Founder has to be strong. Founder has to be strong. Founder has to say no. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Aditya. Nice to talk to you, man. So
Yeah,
it's been
no,
like 12 years.
Yeah, more than 10 years. Yeah.
Can I ask a question then?
Yeah, good.
Sir, in this journey, you might have come across a lot of tempting offers also, such as people might have tried to approach you for the private label and all those things also. So at any given point in time, have you given a thought about it to keep the organization going? Or you were very much focused upon building only your own brand?
So look, private label operates at 10 to 15% margin if you are lucky. Okay. A lot of effort for very little money. A lot of the investment is upfront. It's financially a bad call unless there is huge scale. Private label makes sense when someone is opening up a new geography for you. If someone in the US, Walmart comes to us and says, hey, look, man, I'm going to put you in 300 stores. Here's the business plan that we have for you. Here's the cost we'll give you because here's the price you're going to get. Can you make it for us? Fair enough. Very easy to. Some Indian company wants to say, we'll put your brand on our thing, we'll give you 10% royalty and all nonsense. My view is if the scale is exciting and the scale has to be really exciting, we'll consider it. We have considered it once or twice before. Even in those cases, we have kind of not gone ahead. It's not been exciting enough for us yet. I think it works for companies who have manufacturing capacities and are okay to white label / private label. For us, I can imagine a particular offer being super exciting. Not happened yet.
Okay.
The temptation happens on acquisitions, by the way. Someone comes and says, hey, we're going to acquire you. What is your last round valuation? We'll give you a 30% up. All cash on day one. You stay for 3 years. Hit these targets, move on. Those are the really tempting offers, right? Because those are offers which make you feel, okay, fine, I don't need to work. Like my grandkids don't have to work forever. But you have to say, okay, fine, this is good, but not what it could be in 2 years. Those are the trickier ones to kind of walk away from again for a different day.
Yeah. Got it.
Hi, Shantanu.
Hi.
Hi, Gayatri and Karthik. So I had one question that time, but now I think it's answered. But I just wanted to thank you for this amazing session, and thanks Karthik for organizing this and sending me the
Karthik and
invite.
Gayatri are so active and very, very nice to see entrepreneurs coming together and discussing interesting things. Honestly, I'm hoping this was helpful. Thanks, Tejas. Thanks for your work.
Thanks, Shantanu.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So then, maybe it's time for us to end the meeting. So, thanks a lot, Shantanu. It was wonderful. So, this was like long time due. People had been waiting for this session. It was like absolutely amazing, worth its weight in gold. So thank you so much for, spending 90 minutes of your Saturday morning on us. Okay. So it was absolutely insightful. And I'm sure you're going to get a lot of further queries on WhatsApp. So
what I will do is, I'm just, I think we just share my WhatsApp number. Feel free to do it.
I think you're there in the group, right? So most of the attendees are in the group. So
Okay.
So I think
feel free to reach out, guys. Feel free to reach out. Feel free to call. If I'm not answering, just drop an email on shantanu@bombayshavingcompany.com. If it's urgent, just make sure you let me know. Always available. Founders helped me out when I was starting out, so and I'm keen to also learn from a lot of the experienced founders on this group. They're still very young.
Yes. Okay. All right. So thank you so much. It was like absolutely wonderful. And just one announcement before we end the session. So next month we have Kirit Joshi from Spacefood. Again, an absolute pro at that. So it's raining biggies at VNIT Startup. So we had Shashi sir, then Shantanu again. It's like a big time thing. So it's like hugely popular. And then we have Kirit sir coming in from Spacefood next time. So that's the new episode that's coming up next. And I think that's it from me here. Unless anyone has anything like last thing to say, I think we are done. So, thank you once again, Shantanu. It was absolutely delightful to have you here.
Thank you, Shantanu.
Completely my pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Divya. Divya, someone will reach out to you.
Thanks, Shantanu.
No problem.
Thank you, Shantanu. Good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. It was like wonderful. I think this was perhaps like the most attended session. I don't know. I'm just guessing here, but yeah.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much.